Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ, and today we're going to talk about why does Fantasy D20 and Dungeons and Dragons still keep and have a class system? Why are we still using these old systems of creating characters for our favorite fantasy tabletop role-playing games? Don't we have better methods? Let's go through some of them and then also circle back around and realize, why do we still keep doing the same old thing? All right, guys, get your snacks, put your feet up, join us live on YouTube and Twitch if you can find a channel, and let's get into it. So again, hello everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, little colorful Vader here going on. Color splotches, I guess you call that. But anyway, thank you very much for being here. We're continuing this week on our little rant, bitching and moaning about things that happen and why Dungeons and Dragons still does things the same way, and our complaints about it as those of us old grognards play this game. And then, for the most part, we end up circling back around and going, oh, that's why we still do it the old way. But first, I like to set up our situation and give you like my reasoning why we do a thing and how we do that thing, and if it has any merit, and maybe we can add some more things to it. So of course we have ourselves our whiteboard, and like, aren't there other character creation systems that many of us feel are better than using class systems? All right, so here I have a couple of examples with other character creation methods with plenty of other role-playing games and how they do it. And I'm sure I missed one or two, but let's go through it. We've got the point buy skills first systems. This has been used by the Call of Cthulhu games, and what is the game system? Oh wow, it's sitting on the tip of my tongue. A lot of percentile systems, GURPS uses this system, and essentially the entire character creation system from the bottom up is selective. You can buy whatever skills you want. There are no classes, and in the character creation method, a lot of times these are games where your character are your skills. You may have a few attributes, but essentially you may have three to six attributes, and the rest of your character are all skills. If you want to become a sneaky person, you would buy more skills in stealth. Good morning there, everyone. Afternoon and evening, actually, for some of you from around the world as well. But hey, do you want to be a diplomancer and get all of the social skills? You can. Hey, maybe you want to be the badass warrior type, and so you're going to buy yourself some unarmed skill and some ranged weapon skills. And a lot of times in these skill systems, they may have a laundry list of other skills like carpentry and weaving and specific survival skills. And of course, in many skill systems, and people who love skill systems, they hate the proverbial fill in the blank skill. Like, they may have profession, or they may have region skill, and then you fill it in, meaning like you might have survival and then a blank spot. So you might have mountain survival or oceanic survival or something, or a desert survival, and you fill in the blank. You may have like a trivia skill, which may give you, or a regional knowledge skill like urban knowledge or uh, uh, volcanic knowledge or geography, and yeah, we're going to get Drew's already getting ahead of me, and so basically skill system games tend to fall into this category. um a sci-fi game that I talk about a lot on this channel is Eclipse Phase, and Eclipse Phase is a post-human transhumanist game. It is a percentile system, and it deals with uh skills first. Okay, so in order to represent other character classes from other games, you have to buy your skills. Now, we also have package deals, and package deals are like, um, instead of being fiddly and being able to pick everything for the character, you have packages, and those packages may come in points. They may, instead of points, you may have to pick something for, like, okay, here's what you used to be, pick that package. Here's what you are now, package. Here's your extraordinary capability, package. And then you just pick those and you combine them together. Oftentimes they are, in those character creation systems, they are thematic. So it might be like a yeah. Life path systems. I didn't put that on there. I told you I would miss something there, Drew. So definitely going to have to add life path system on here. Um, Knowledge about a thing can also define a character to some degree. I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree about that that thing. I will place your comments, or open up your comments in just a minute. Yes, I live in the future. Of course I will. Yes, yes, yes. And there are, I guess another one would be specialist systems. So everyone starts out with a very short, there's a very short squat method of character creation. Usually the skills tend to be not very much into the double digits. And then you have specialties. So you may have survival, or like you're like herbal medicine, like you point out here, Ishtar. And there are specialty systems. Of course, we have on this my little list here, random selection, basically randomly rolling up your character. I suppose life path could fit in there, but maybe that's cutting it a little bit too good. One unique thing that I put on here is, some character creation systems aren't very dynamic, but you get to pick a unique thing for your character. And I'm going to put character creation from Cyberpunk 2020 and the R. Talsorian Games version of Cyberpunk. And that tends to have a one unique thing, in the sense that if you want to play a hacker or a solo or a media character or a rocker character, you'll have this like unique thing that only solos are, basically like your gun toting urban samurai. And if you have this unique thing, that makes you the warrior class, basically. And usually it's like a one capability. The hacker can hack, into systems. Other characters don't really have the ability to do that, but you can still pick skills like anybody else, except for your one unique thing, and that kind of gives you your thing. Here I put Build-A-Bear, and Build-A-Bear idea. It's very similar to package deals, in the sense that everyone gets to pick from the same function, but we all know what the outcome is going to be. So, like a Build-A-Bear, you there's no way you're going to come out to be an octopus, right? No matter what you try to do with the system. And usually, in what I mean by Build-A-Bear systems are like, if you're playing, let me try to think of a game. Oh wow. Okay, you're playing a vampire game, and in Vampire they do have skills, and they do have like the things you can pick in Vampire are extremely limited to what the thematic element of the game is. You really can't go too far outside of no matter how you character create, you can't really go too far outside that concept. And so a lot of times they're very bounded. And let's put in here life path system. One of the most common, and I don't believe it exists anymore. Yeah. One of the most famous life path systems came from the Traveler game. I don't believe it exists in its current iteration, but back in the life path system for Traveler was you could choose to keep rolling on the life path system tables, but you could die in character creation. And I think the purpose of that was that um, you get to choose how old your character begins in the game. So you can keep choosing to roll on the character creation system, which makes you better because you go through more, uh, you have a longer lifespan to go through many events. And sometimes those events could get you killed. And so, yes, your badass character with one bad die roll could be killed in character creation. Ishtar says point buy systems often tend to create specialists in a field because a player often can buy only so many things. Exactly. And so the argument that I'm making up a false argument, by the way. You guys know that. The argument is like, why does Dungeons and Dragons and Fantasy D20? Why do we still use a class-based system? And allow me to page down here. I think these are probably some of the reasons. Oops, it moved on. Oh, because of the size. Okay, so why keep classes? Like, why? And then are there better ways of doing this? And I wonder if we could tolerate changes in Dungeons and Dragons. And could someone actually do this? My answer to that, of course, is yes. But here are some reasons why I think character classes are still around. They're easy and bounded. So if you want to play Fightor, you pick Fightor. It's very the choices in classes are easy enough, and for the most part, easy to comprehend. If you're a new player or you want to engage in fantasy, but they've changed things around just a little bit, and you want to know what that's about, it's very easy to find and it's very bounded. What I mean by bounded is you're very rarely going to get a Fightor that's going to have a lot of other aspects of other niches. You're not going to, so you won't be confused with, okay, do I want to play a stealthy fighter? Do I want to play a magic fighter? A diplomatic fighter? Like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of crazy. You're not going to get too far outside of the fighter. And the same thing goes for the other character classes. You're going to play a rogue or a thief in my old days. You're not going to go too far outside of that. Also, they're very thematic. So most character classes have a theme to it that we go, oh, okay, I get it, right? Like, there's a reason why the paladin has stuck around for so long, even though it's very culturally specific. Because there are plenty of other cultures that have a paladin-like individual in their history, but they aren't paladins at all. But the word still sticks around. Even the word monk has people that rubs people the wrong way because they're like, why do I have to have a martial artist in my pseudo para fantasy world and whatnot? But yeah, also they're predictable. So in many ways, some of the features that classes have, there's predictable growth. There's predictable new numbers that come out of these things. So character classes are, well, they are predictable. You're not going to, you know that the fighter, the warrior class, is going to be better at hitting things about the head and shoulders, hitting enemies about the head and shoulders. You're not going to get too far away from it. There might be something like, oh, I can make a ranged warrior. And you go, oh, okay, but they still get bonuses or numbers or features that make them better at hitting things. Of course, I made the font very large. So we go to another page here. Niche protection. Niche protection is very important as well. And that's very easy to do with character classes, because if an argument can be made that character creation without niche protection can automatically start conflict before the game even begins. So in a skill-based system, oftentimes what can happen is when players make characters away from each other and they come back to the table, they go, well, I want to be the sneaky character, but someone else who has nothing to do with sneaking around dumped all their points in stealth or hide in shadows or whatever cloaking ability or sneaking ability there is. And there's often no guardrails for that in skill-based systems. And the person goes, well, I wanted to have magic or psionics or something like that, but I also wanted to be sneaky. And so then they dump all their points in the sneakiness. And the one person that's like, but I built my character around that. And so you can get some arguments about that. This looks funky. This looks really weird. All right. But there's plenty of space for this kind of thing. Come on. Wild. Okay, anyway. Sorry, Google Docs. That's what happens. So allow me to place your comments up. Put them in the overlay and get rid of this. And make some arguments. All right. Here we go. Ishtar says, a salubrian vampire is rather close to the boundaries the game stories usually end up as. Yeah, for those who are not familiar, Vampire the Masquerade and its continued growth thereafter. I'm a first edition vampire person. You can really tell that for the way I talk about the game. But any iteration, like the Salubri really pushes the boundaries. I think there's another one called, it's like Bando or Bandus or something like that came from one of the early books that like really pushed the boundaries. I think the Gangrel as a vampire tribe of sorts, of vampire thing, I think it pushes the boundaries because you're kind of getting close and rubbing up against like werewolves and things like that. But yeah. Drew mentions that the Fantasy Flight Games Legend of Five Rings version has a questionnaire character creation system, thus certain values are determined by the answers players give. Yeah, we did an overview of that. And it's literally called a game of 20 questions. And the way you answer the questions, and it's actually kind of slick. And to be honest with you, I think you could pick up that questionnaire system and dump it in something else, and it would work perfectly in science fiction, modern gaming, fantasy gaming. But yeah, the question's kind of like, it's a subtle, it subtly funnels you into becoming a samurai. The way the questions are framed, and it's actually pretty slick. I like it. If you don't mind, I'll bring it up if you guys don't mind. The 20 questions. Let's see. Gameplay says team cohesion. That's another thing that character classes do. Not that other character creation systems don't do this, but character classes do create like archetypes, and those archetypes create team cohesion. And we see those archetypes in media, right? We've got the let me pick with like horror, right? In the horror genre, we have the nerd, we've got the jock, we've got the, I don't know, the seductress, we have the goody two shoes, right? Like there is a team cohesion in horror films, and the same could be done for like for character classes as well. I mean, Call of Cthulhu classically, of course, is about uncovering Lovecraftian horrors, but there still is a niche for different types of character creation, even though the game is more skill-based. And oftentimes you can, like I said, with an extremely open skill-based system, you can start rubbing people the wrong way. Also, skill-based systems do have a limitation, and we'll talk about some of the limitations of not using class systems, which is a reason why I think some class systems still stick around. I think, yeah, I think such a character creation method would be interesting for other systems. Talking about the game of 20 questions. As a matter of fact, give me a slight moment here. See if I can call this. Let's see. Boom, boom. Oh, do a search for my computer. Core book. Sorry about that. I'm just gonna see if I can find this. Oh, yeah, it's still there from the last time we checked it out. Yes. Wow. Okay. Cool. 2-page spread. Game of 20 questions. There we go. And we'll share this out. Matter of fact, you know what? Nah, we will do this a one page because it's very difficult to see this. Because my version, my PDF is a page scan, and so game of 20 questions. So and also this is a good way to put something up so you guys don't have to look at my face. There we go. So what you're seeing here is the beginning of the 20 questions from Legend of the Five Rings. I believe this is 3rd edition of the game. Drew goes on to say, I mean, in the end, my own system is basically a questionnaire at character creation. Even though there are no stats deriving from it, it's all about the narrative. Yep. The funny thing is that gangrel are very close to some vampire myth. Yep, yeah, it actually sure is, since the distinction between vampires and werewolves is rather modern. As a very close, I mean, not only is that very true, that's actually very true of like pretty much all like the classic fantasy monsters, like goblins and ogres and things like that. Like a lot of those, what we now know in the gaming industry as being separate, are really just a hodgepodge of like many different cultures' distinctions of what like fey creatures were, or monsters, or beasts, and things like that. It was because Malkavian life. Hashtag. Hey, don't throw up. I can see you over there throwing up a Malkavian gang signs there. Yeah. We have the first to die. Drew's like, obviously, I'll play the final girl. Yeah, the final girl in the horror movie tropes and such. I wonder if Call of Cthulhu or other horror movie themed games have included the final girl as a character function. Because I think it would be pretty easy to make something like that. Yeah, there's the first to die in the horror movie. There usually is. Although, like Scary Movie and other movies have pointed out the ridiculousness of it too. Horror movies, you notice what character is written to be killed as the first one, usually the one with the fewest details put in because they die in the next 15 minutes. Yeah, and also, listen, the only way to how do you explain this? You need red shirts in horror movies to explain what the horror is with characters we're not attached to, so that we understand what the stakes are. So you need a bunch of randos. I mean, if you take a look back at a classic, which is The Thing, back in the early 80s, the movie The Thing, there's a bunch of characters in that Arctic region that we knew nothing about. They all had beards. A bunch of them died, and it was a way for us to explain to the public, like, oh, this is what the monster can do. I think vampires and werewolves are called Nahul, where I'm from. Ah, okay. Yeah, and also, like I said, a lot of times these things are cultural. So this is it's called Game of 20 Questions, but it, the game isn't about 20 questions, but maybe it kind of is. So here we have the first question. What clan does your character belong to? And this is the first question of 20 questions to help navigate how do you play this game and how a character is created. Here we also have, maybe more games should have something like this in it. And this has nothing to do with your stats, has nothing to do with your numbers. And also it also gives you a Legend of Five. By the way, Legend of Five Rings is a game about playing a samurai, and one of the greatest aspects of the game is you have a character who has internal feelings, logic, motivations, but you also have an external version of yourself. And you realize in this game that every other person is exactly like you, but you just can't say it. So every person has an external face and an internal core, and navigating how do you deal with the fact that everyone is hiding this internal person versus external for whatever reasons. So anyway, we have questions like, how would others describe your character's appearance? Another question, what is your character's greatest strength, greatest weakness? Is your character a bushi, shukenja, monk, or courtier? And that is, of course, extremely specific to the culture of this game, but the same could be questioned about other things like, hey, does your character have a day job, right? Is your character well respected? Is your character an outcast or whatever? Could be interpreted in that thing. Like, is your character a sage, or are they homeless? What does your character think of Bushido, which is the code of honor? And the same, like, again, you could rephrase that question as to what do they think about the laws of the land or the culture in the land or things like that. Another question, what family does your character belong to? Family tradition is very important. Not a lot of murder hoboing in L5R, to be honest with you. What is your character's opinion of his own clan? Which means this is a leading question. It's the classic lawyer question. When was it that you stopped committing these crimes? Question in court, right? It's a leading question because what is your character's opinion of his own clan? Basically, it's like saying, well, how do you know I belong to a clan? Well, by the nature of the question, it means you belong to a faction or a group. And in any other fantasy, you could say, okay, well, what is your character's opinion of belonging to, and then pick a random nation, or pick a random criminal organization, or pick a random night place, I don't know, knighthood or something, or wizards cabal or whatever. What is your character's main motivation? Is your character married? And you could that question about being married could lead into things like siblings, or do they even want to get married? Do they have kids? How old are they? Things like that. Who is the person your character trusts most, which is a leading question to make up an NPC? Does your character have any prejudices, which automatically creates conflict with some other parties in the world? Fantasy D20 would mean, like, do you have a prejudice against elves or goblinoids or giants or something? Magic, nobility thing. Do you have a do you have an artificially created conflict point that other people don't have? To whom does your character owe the most loyalty? Which, again, is a leading question to create a an ally or a faction or a leadership type that they're very loyal to. Could be a cousin, could be a mentor. How would your character's parents describe him? That's a very strange question. What is your character's highest ambition? What are your character's favorite and least favorite things? And that goes into, like, what do you do in your downtime instead of sharpening your sword? How religious is your character? Does your character have any recurring mannerisms? Smoking, drinking, tapping their foot, whistling, um, reading poetry, whatever. If you could, what advice would you give your character? Which is another leading question, which kind of says that your character isn't perfect and probably could use some help in their life choices. What about your character's emotions? And how would your character handle a subordinate's improper behavior, which again leads into your character maybe obtaining some kind of authority or leadership role, something. So kind of cool, kind of cool. Anyway, Nahul certainly sounds meso. I could look that up. Cabin in the Woods broke down the horror tropes pretty well. I agree with that. Yeah, Cabin in the Woods, pretty. Oh, one of a number of horror themes, even though that we don't necessarily need to focus on horror. But yeah, they absolutely did. Even the monsters in at the end of the movie were just like, wait, I've seen all those before. Yep, yep, yep. Let me look this up. Nahul, a Mesoamerican and Toltec spiritual traditions. A Nahul, also spelled Nagul, refers to a human being who can access spiritual power through transformation or a deep connection with their tonal counterpart, often an animal spirit. The word Nahul stems from Nahuali in many Mesoamerican languages, which can mean disguise, shapeshifter, or transforming witch. Some tribes believe Nahul spirits were capable of evil, while others believe that all people were imbued with a Nahul at birth, linked to their birth date by the calendar system. We went over two games about that. Coyote and Crow is one that has that built into the system with the Adamante, where each character has like a totemic spirit in them that gives them certain increased capabilities. And then we also did Mahuahitl, which is the Aztec sacrificing people so that the gods don't destroy humanity. But yeah, and there's some things here. Yep. A human being has the power to shapeshift into their tonal animal counterpart. Very cool. Vampire, the day job. That's so silly. Yeah. My Mutants and Masterminds character, Arachne, wrote that she had a toy shop she looks after. See, sometimes those little things, because for the most part, that's not really going to have a mechanical effect in the game, but yeah, those are like really cool things. Really cool features to have for a character. Like, what do they do in their downtime? It's finding out like the big bad guy is like feeding the homeless or takes care of puppies or something like that, and you're like, wow, hobbits raided and burned my village to the ground. We never hear about things like that because, like, why is it like hobbits and halflings have to be the are for the most part considered comedy relief? I suppose Dark Sun has them as cannibals. Eberron too, because they ride on dinosaurs. But for the most part, like, hobbits and halflings are kind of like the maybe gnomes are coming up, are the come ups for the comedy relief. But yeah, that's the thing. Okay, hard segue back to character class systems. Now, one of the features of character class systems, because we're going to go back and forth between what's horrible and what's great about them, keeping the massacred is Yeah, yeah. You were already there. Yeah, yeah. Cannibal halflings. Although maybe they make jokes about eating people. I don't know. Yeah, keeping massacre is a chore. Do you mean a chore? Sorry, gameplays. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to there, but I think I know what you mean. Um, so with character class systems, we do have like a predictable, shall I say, um growth pattern, and sometimes we kind of need to know that the players aren't going to go too far outside of where their growth will go. So starting at first level, a first level fighter in fantasy D20 Dungeons and Dragons, when they get to fifth level, we know that they're not going to go too far outside of hitting monsters with weapons about their head and shoulders. Now the downside to that is maybe, just maybe, the character might start learning something about religion, or start sneaking around with the adventuring party because they're in a world where, or they're in a setting, I'm sorry, they're in a region in the setting where they have to sneak around, and maybe it would make sense for the character to get more stealthy skills. Now, mind you, in fifth edition, you can buy your stealth skill up and things like that, which is, that's not horrible. But in a skill-based game, when everything's a la carte and you can buy those points, when you gain those experience points and you can spread them around to your skills, you very much can do that. Now, I didn't include like character advancement, but there are some games that do character advancement in a particular way, a lot different than character classes. So we know character advancement in character classes is either through milestone or experience points. You go up a level, and when you go up a level, you gain the very next traits. But there are some character advance systems that fall in between skills, where you just get a block of points from experience, and you spread those points to buy your knowledge skills up, your stealth skills up, your combat skills up, your stealthy or social skills up, 1, 2, 3 points at a time. But there are some advancement games that those advancements encourage you to engage in parts of your character you normally would not engage in. So, for example, there are some games, skill-based for the most part, where you put a check mark next to your skill that you failed during the game. So you failed to parlay with the shop owner. You failed to sneak past the guard. You failed your history check. You failed your ranged weapon check. And every time you put a check mark next to it, you gain points, or you gain a die, or you gain the ability to, at the end of the game, roll to see if that skill goes up. And um, I like the fail forward system, because not only does it encourage players to engage in non-optimal gameplay, but you get rewarded for doing that thing. So what's the old adage? What gets repeated gets rewarded. Um, no, what gets rewarded gets repeated. Sorry. So if the game encourages you to um, use those skills, then they go up. Also, there are advancement systems where if you get too good at a thing, there's probably a good chance you won't increase past a certain point. Some percentage-based systems are like this, and heck, even Morkborg does this with its very low numbers, where you have to roll the dice for your skills, but if you fail to overcome your skill, it won't go up. And it starts to put a randomizer and a hard limit on how high your skills can go. So if your skill was like 67% stealth and you want to get it higher, you have to roll above your 67%. Well, when it gets to 82%, the chances of you rolling above 82% is probably low. But guess what? That 27% first aid skill and that 32% diplomacy skill probably will increase. So we do have advancement systems that kind of fit into like the character class systems as well. Also, but one of the limitations of class systems is it's very hard to break out of them. That's why there are like dual class systems, multi-classing, and even though it can get a little complicated, the reason they exist is because so many people were trying to escape the boundaries of I am fighter, but I want to learn magic. And how do I do that after I get the 5th level? How do I incorporate that into the game? Now, something that I'm surprised no one has done yet for 5th edition, and it's complicated. This will take some work, but I think you might have something on your hands here, and that is this. So 2014 5th edition does not belong to Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro or Dungeons and Dragons, the intellectual property. It does not. It is in Creative Commons. What I would challenge someone to do is to take every single character class feature, rip it out of its bounded categories, and make it a la carte. So at first level, you can pick 3 features and you can go, I want to have rage, I want to pick, I don't know, spell casting, and I want to pick, I don't know, a sneak attack or something like that, right? And you could have like maybe some are more valuable than others. Like spell casting's probably a lot more valuable than say a weapon mastery or something like that. But each level you go up, you just get to pick from the 2nd level features. And when you get to 3rd level, you can pick from the 3rd level features. And then maybe do a I'm going to make up a phrase. I'm going to call it extraordinary points, or hero. I'll just call them hero points or adventure points. And adventure points can be spent equally on, say, rage, spells, channeling, what's some other stuff, smiting, something like that. Maybe someone could go in and there we go. I'm not sure what is happening with my chat. Let's see if I can get it to reboot, kind of. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it looked like it froze on me because I couldn't move it. But we could have many systems where character class systems also could be very generalized, and instead of being funneled or gate kept into a very narrow thing, character class systems could work if they're very generalized. As a matter of fact, Level Up Advanced 5th edition kind of did that, in the sense that as you keep going, let's say you pick the marshal, or you pick a rogue, or you pick a different a character class, a classic character class, but within each of those classes, you always have a number of options as you go up. So a warrior class could have a lot of different options, so you could ping pong back and forth during creation, and that kind of point. I would call the generic points ephemera. Yeah, but see, here's, and I see where you're going. Here's the problem, Drew. I feel like you would, if you incorporated something like this, that your character classes wouldn't be like fantasy tropes. I imagine you would make them, wow. I was about to say emotional. That's not what I mean. Personality. I'm using the wrong words for this, but I think it would still work when you have these ephemera points could count towards like physical, emotional, social, and whatever your characters are picking for these categories, that's what they get, right? Like it. For some reason, I'm thinking of, is it Monster of the Week? Oh no, is it Masks? It's a game where you play teenagers. think it's Mask. You're like teenage superheroes. No, 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 no. That's not Mask. Um, Maybe it is Monster of the Week, where you're in high school and you're like vampires and ghosts and wizards and stuff like that, and you have these connections with each other, similar to Thirsty Sword Lesbians, but not quite. Oh, I can't remember the game, or maybe I said the game and I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. um, Also, another thing I think that other game systems use for character creation and, of course, spending points is it Monster Hearts. Thank you. Woo. The horrors of doing things live. Monster Hearts. That is exactly right. Yeah, you similar to Thirsty Sword Lesbians, you get into these you get to you link up with characters based on your successes and failures, and then they can pull these threads to make you act and or react in certain ways. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's not it's more about relationships and emotional intensity and your connections with other people, and sometimes those connections aren't equal, and that's where the conflict comes in. Yeah, sometimes maybe you're more attracted to someone else than they are to you. That kind of thing. So sometimes a game may give you, for example, they may give you a pool of dice or a pool of points to use in interacting with the world, and your character is basically has features that allow you to interact with the world a certain way. So everyone may get 10 points or 10 dice in your dice pool, but the character who is stealthy gets to use those dice for stealth more than, say, the warrior gets to use it. Also, with character advancement, sometimes they will bound characters based on the role that they play. So both the warrior and the rogue may be able to buy stealth, but the rogue gets to buy it cheaper. They advance better with it, or they can use more dice in the game rather than the warrior who doesn't have that specialty. And that's why I pointed out what was it, Build-A-Bear, right? Like you don't have too many options, but mixing and matching those options gives us a lot of different capabilities in the game. Drew says maybe I should use Twitch more often. The comments go much faster though. Because I could actually show this to you. I could let's see. Can I share this? There we go. So I know this looks very odd and it goes off into infinity, but this is what my screen looks like. And so over here, I can't even highlight it. So over here, you can see where your avatars are at, and you can see the little red icon for YouTube, and then you can see the icon for Twitch. No one ever shows up on Facebook, but they would come through too. So that's what my screen looks like. Yeah, it looks more complicated than it is. If you guys know about OBS, it's even more OBS and things like that. Streamlabs and whatnot. It gets even more complicated. So yeah. So while on forward wise, it may look really cool. Behind the scenes, sometimes if you're not familiar with how it works, it can get a little complicated. With the overlays and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think character classes stick around because I think it's very important to have a theme for your game. And while I don't agree with the themes that they've picked, like Fighter is very generic versus Paladin, which is very specific, versus Monk, which is even more specific, you know what I mean? And then you've got Wizard, which, but I think the themes stick around because it really tells us what the game is about. And one of my favorite games and one of the best written games, both quality wise and whatnot, is Eclipse Phase. But one of the limitations from Eclipse Phase was that it initially had an a la carte creation system that was so open-ended that the game setting was complicated enough that maybe the character creation system shouldn't have been a la carte. Now, the way you created your character was perfect. There was nothing wrong with the game system. Some people just don't like percentile systems, but to each their own. But even if you did like percentile systems, it was so open-ended. One of the limitations of having open-ended character creation is you get into the problem where a player who is either doesn't know what the setting and the themes are, a player has in their own head what they want to do anyway and ignores the themes, or two or more players have the exact same it's parallel growth and creativity, and they both think of the same type of character, and then when they point by their character and come to the table, they end up being the same, or they're fighting each other. They're jockeying for position in the niche of the game. Whereas very easily, if you start creating, you want to play fantasy D20, and someone goes, I'm going to play a cleric, and everyone else goes, great, because that means I don't have to play the cleric. It's very easy to go, okay, I'm going to play a cleric, I'll play an elf, and I was a street urchin, and you're done. And so being able to pick those tropes and easily communicate that to other people at the table and your game master, your dungeon master, is a very simple thing. When you have a point system, it's very difficult. Also, we tend not to look at the value of how fast or slow or how much investment pre versus post at the table use you get out of your character. So in the OSR, you could probably, in most OSR games, you could make upwards of a 5th level character in about 5 minutes on a 3x5 card, right? And which means that the death and destruction of your PC, is like, whatever. I've got like 6 sitting in the background that I've created randomly while you guys were talking when you looked up that spell effect. Whereas in some a la carte skill-based games, you could spend 45 minutes, never finish your character, have them die, and then you just get pissed off because your next concept, your current concept died, your next concept isn't going to be as good. You want to make something different, and then it's like, all right, 45 minutes later, hey, put me in the game, coach, and the GM is like, are you done yet? No, because I need to reduce. Remember, if you go over 60 points in spending for my stealth skill, then it's 2 points per, and I forgot to add in the math for that, so I got to reduce it down because I put my skill at 80, which is 20 points over, which is technically 40 points that I spent on my skill, and everyone's rolling their eyes like, dude, just hurry up, just make your character. Which, mind you, Eclipse Phase did fix it. They did fix it, and they did come up with a package system. And I think it was a 3-tier package system. So if you wanted to make a spy, you could pick Spy 1, Spy 2, or Spy 3. And those packages would give you all the points and gear you needed to play that. Like a Spy 1 might only give you a forged document, whereas Spy 3 might give you like a biological mask and a voice alterating thing and a device that you can place on doors that unlocks and unlocks any door you come to, and a watch that does, you know what I mean? Like it had little gadgets, and then it gave you certain skills. You could throw the skills in there. So they eased the complication, but I think it was too late. Also, the one of the issues with skill systems is if something happens in the game where your skills tend to fluctuate. Let's go back to Eclipse Phase. You had your mind or your ego, and then your body or your morph, kind of like Obsidian Star, my game, where you have your zipper, which is your mind, and your jacket, which is your body. And so when you zip into your jacket, you might have 2 things that combine together, and then if one gets removed, most likely your body, and you go into another one. Now you kind of have to rewrite your character sheet again and the features on your character, and that can get a little complicated too. Which is why in the ye olden days of Dungeons and Dragons, there was a monster ability called Drain Life. And if you got your life drained from you, you literally had your character levels drained, which meant that you had to redo the math on your character. So you were 8th level fighter. Well, more complicated if you were 8th level cleric or wizard. But so your 8th level, you suffered 3 level drains down to 5th level. That means you had to go back through your character and eliminate all of the features to bring you back down to 5th level. You had to kind of rewrite your character. Everybody hated it. Hated it. Yeah, Spook. Spook says, I've become a big fan of group character creation for a lot of those conflict reasons. That's why Session Zero. And I understand, like safety tools and so many other things in our gaming community, that you're just like, Session Zero, stupid. And I'm like, okay, maybe you don't use those words, but if you have successful games, you're probably doing a version of Session Zero, right? Now, Session Zero doesn't even need to be like we're all sitting around the table. You could just have a text thread that's like, hey, everybody, put in the text thread what you want to play, and someone goes, I want to play my Elven Cleric, and everyone goes, oh, okay, good, all right. Now I know what not to rub up against, True says maybe you should have 2 character sheets for Obsidian Star, one for Zipper and one for the jacket. Yeah, it's not that complicated. but to require 2 character sheets, but I could see someone who's creative could make like cards that would make that process easy. So you could take a card that represents one archetype and then combine it with another card and overlay those 2 at the table, so that if one goes away, you could very easily swap it with another card. I don't think anyone's ever done that perfectly in tabletop games, but I think it's possible to do that. And thanks for going over to Twitch. I know you can vacillate between Twitch and YouTube, but thank you. Palladium, make a character. It'll take a few hours. You should bring a backup too. Yeah. The Palladium game system. And you know what? For those who are not familiar with the Palladium game system, it is a not quite well-refined version of our classic Dungeons and Dragons system. You have stats, you have some capabilities, you have some skills, but one of the worst things in Palladium games are you can pick a skill that also affects other skills. So, like, I believe there was like an athletics skill, and if you picked athletics, it meant like your toughness went up, and then your like ability to run, jump, or swim, or something like that also went up if you picked similar skills. GURPS has that too. In the GURPS creation system, it's like, well, if you pick science, it also affects your geology skill. Oof. Drew says Warhammer 3rd edition had something like that with cards that could be put together. I'm not familiar with Warhammer, like the Warhammer creation system. And I know I've played Warhammer before. I don't own the game. I don't know the meta history of it. Man, I got a blank spot in my geekdom. But to be honest with you, there's perfectly logical reasons why character classes stick around. And a lot of that is ease of use, tradition, bounded choices. Even though every time a new iteration of Fantasy D20 comes out, there's always some people that are like, we need 37 new classes, which is always pushing up against the fact that the creators were like, the whole point of it was not to have that, it's like, or maybe sometimes players are looking for a thing that doesn't need to be there. It's like but yeah, not even 40K. Nope, I don't even own that game or anything. Yeah. But anyway, guys, it is 7 o'clock. Got to get out of here. 7 a.m. here Eastern Seaboard, Eastern Standard Time. So you guys have a great evening. We will talk about we'll complain about something tomorrow and have some fun with that as well. Maybe we'll complain about all the little fiddly bits. Maybe that's what we'll do. So anyway, guys, I do want to cut it a little bit short. Got to get out of here. But you guys have a great day, and I will see thee later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.